Disclaimer, my review of Devil May Cry 5 will contain full-on spoilers. If you haven't played the game yet, now might be a good time to pack your bags, lad. With all that being said, let's jump right into the mix and let's get this party started. Greetings ladies and gentlemen, this is Renegade Operative here, and I want to welcome you to my full evaluation of a game featuring everyone's favorite white-haired Yahoo man, Dante. We're reviewing DMC5, the fifth entry in this particular franchise that took an 11-year gap from DMC4 to DMC5. How's that for a bad case of road rash in between the years with a mediocre reboot to kill some time? Hideaki Itsuno has come back into full force, making the bold exclamation that DMC is back.
DMC is back!
In order to properly deep dive into this review, I feel like I have to mention some of the shortcomings with Devil May Cry 4. It felt like a bit of an incomplete experience. There were these lavish promises of multiple levels, and it catered around Dante's shenanigans. This involved fighting more demons in the center of the earth, aka Hell Incarnate. It is sad to report that these ideas were left on the cutting room floor when DMC4 shifted from a PlayStation 3 exclusive to a multi-platform offering. You could tell Capcom really rushed the development cycle to make that immediate deadline of the release date in 2008. It really does show with the ample amount of backtracking through previous levels with Dante and some of the bosses not being tailor-made just for him. Devil May Cry 4's initial focus was going to be centered around Nero only, and no other spotlight would be given to any additional characters. While it certainly would have been an extremely ballsy move, I can see why Dante was reintroduced to give the game more appeal to veterans of the series. However, it still feels like Nero's game since playing with him still feels a lot more refined around his Devilbringer playstyle. Devil May Cry 5 takes on the immediate task of introducing us to three protagonists in a new adventure. How does Capcom fare? Do they repeat the same mistakes of DMC4, or do they break new mold with a clear evolution for the franchise? Let's start off with the gameplay, which is the most important meal being given to us on a silver platter. If you played Devil May Cry before, then this game will feel largely familiar to you. Many of the outlandish, crazy combos remain intact, with a few new bonuses that pepper up the gameplay in the form of new weapons or abilities that gain the advantage on your demon buddies. That familiarity is really important because there is a laundry list of new and old skills that needs to be learned or acquired through the in-game store. Luckily, Devil May Cry has started to put a new emphasis on accessibility while keeping the core combat a cut above the rest. If you feel intimidated by the meta of DMC, then Capcom was gracious enough to put in a training mode, which is akin to the DMC reboot, where you can practice on a training dummy. It's a definitive way to test out the water when you see which move is more efficient in combat. One of the main additions to this game is the character of V, the mysterious one. While Dante and Nero's DPS extravaganza is not vastly out of the ordinary for DMC, V on the other hand is a completely different amalgamation. V summons creatures to do his bidding like Griffin or Shadow. He's mostly a summoner, and these beasts mostly hammer away at enemies from a various range, while you play the long game to regain Devil Trigger to summon a powerful Shadow Devil known as Nightmare. I know this guy looks like he needs to run back off to the Mega Man scrap heap, but he is a force to be reckoned with, especially with his eye lasers that can really explode all targets on impact with AoE effects. The novelty then starts to wear thin when you realize that V isn't as deep as Dante or Nero. It makes you ask, what is the point of this character if your summons don't spawn back next to you immediately as they get stalemated by other creatures? It feels like you have no control. V feels way too simplistic in this regard. He's way too caveman oriented to be in a Devil May Cry game in terms of what he has to offer, plus the lack of customization and playtime for him in the overall story really hones in that point. Also, I swear, how is it that the biggest world's baddest clone of Kylo Ren, he gets this EX provocation in Bloody Palace that turns his freaking cane into a lightsaber, but the cane is virtually useless in gameplay outside of the roll fork maneuver. It makes no sense. It really doesn't provide anything of substance outside of hitting a stick against a tree. That's how weak V's cane is. I wish he had more options. Options, people, they are important. If V did more damage output with this cane as a solitary method of attack, he would be a bit more useful. It's not really the end of the world just yet because I don't like V that much. Devil May Cry's core frenetic combat still feels as smooth as hot butter for this series, despite V's inclusion being akin to some arbitrary fan service. You can still jump cancel, style switch, change your weapons in mid-combat, etc. You can do it all. Nero's new Devil Breaker system leaves you experimenting with these big boss like robo arms left on the battlefield. I almost feel inclined to keep rocket punching people with the punchline maneuver because that exactly is what it reminds me of, Metal Gear Solid 5. I also found it cool that this Devil May Cry lets you do custom loadouts for once, which is the one thing that kind of bothered me, kind of irked me in some of the previous iterations, having a limited weapon selection that you can take with you. Imagine getting this awesome cutscene, right? Virgil is punching the sheer bejesus out of this corpse with gauntlets and greaves. You pick them up later, you get to the weapon selection menu, and then you have to decide if you're going to take 2 devil arms and 2 guns with you outside of a full freaking arsenal. The problem has been fully solved at this point now. If you want to take a good bulk of devil arms with you, then you're more entitled to do so now. I really like that a lot, and the rest just boils down to some nitpicks involving Nero. Little Boy Blue, aka the premium sack of dead weight, could have been a bit more versatile if he was given more devil arms to work with. I know the breaker system does allow some leeway and it does give him more options, but I feel like he could have had more weapons than just the Red Queen and the Blue Rose. Sadly, you have to also break the devil breakers in order to switch them out. Sometimes it can be a big gamble on risk versus reward if you find yourself out of breakers. It can be a cool catch if you overheat the arm for an amazing finisher. The same could be said for some of the unique weapons for Dante. They feel very few and far between. They took some time to bring back the Cerberus nunchakus, but they couldn't be bothered to bring back that Voltron kill mode briefcase from DMC4? What the hell, man? Enemies are similar to previous entries with some new ones that will be sure to end your whole career if you're not too careful. The boss fights are pretty amazing. They are spectacular spectacle battles, but I did feel like the final boss with Virgil was a bit redundant since he's so puny against Nero and not Dante. It's just a weird distinction that needs to be pointed out. At its peak, Devil May Cry is all about stylish tacticians finding the most effective way to take down these big ugly baddies. DMC didn't need to change or exclude a jump button from its formula, and longtime supporters wouldn't want it any less different. It builds upon its own structure instead of taking away from what you learned, and I think that's very valuable to the Devil May Cry experience, and it is a true sequel to DMC4. All of the characters feel built upon, where the game functions around their own unique playstyles. Dante doesn't take massive amounts of work to take down bosses. The whole game just feels right with its intended free flow combat not being interrupted. That's another blessing I can give to Isuno. Another blessing I can also give to the guy is the removal of items or shifting around in menus. It has been supremely downscaled. Another thing that has plagued DMC games is the annoying camera shift during platforming segments, which seems to be all but removed for this entry. Everything just feels gracious, but the levels could have been a bit more varied compared to Devil May Cry 3. The controls still feel really responsive in my hands after all these years when I played Devil May Cry 5. You just never really got lost with learning how things work or customizing things to your own benefit, which is still an option. Before we move on to the story bits, there's one small thing that I like to get out of the way first. I think that this linear campaign of automatically swapping characters throughout a single narrative blows a little bit. Why do I have to wait all the way until mission 10 to get my hands on Dante? For the next Devil May Cry game, I think they should experiment with the idea of multiple campaigns, which is akin to Resident Evil 6 and Tenchu 2 Birth of the Stealth Assassins. If you're going to go all gung-ho for player choice, then that should reflect upon picking which character you want to play with first at any given point. If Devil May Cry is growing into a franchise where multiple characters are the main focus now, then I should be able to pick that character first when I want, and I should start his story branch and switch over to the next character if I choose to, or if I complete the previous character's story. That way, you can get a demonstration of all their movesets more earlier than usual. You do share orbs in between each character as you did with DMC4 as well, so I think that is a great feature that should be kept. It should save your time as well as your patience. Now on to the story. A basic synopsis of the plot involves a 5-year time jump from DMC4 to DMC5. Also, there's a lot of novels you should read on, like Before the Nightmare and Visions of V, so you won't be too lost in this experience if you want more backstory there. I don't know why it's not in the game, but I digress. A powerful demon named Urizen takes over as the new king of the underworld as his new ruler. He surprisingly defeats Nero and Dante with ease, so the crew are forced to retreat without Dante. A mysterious man named V tells Nero that he needs to get stronger if he wants to face the demon king who stole his arm. Through a series of flashbacks, you'll see that Nero was attacked by a hooded man who wanted the Devil Bringer for an unknown reason. As you progress further, the plot unfolds even more as Redgrave City is overrun by this giant demon tree, giving all the civilians the suck, throwing the world into chaos yet again. You'll eventually discover that V is Virgil's human side. He split himself in two to save himself after countless battles with Dante. Virgil's body was breaking down at his core, and it's revealed in a last-ditch effort that he impaled himself with Yamato. This split wasn't the best, since it gave birth to the Demon King Urizen, Virgil's demon side. He has been seeking the demon fruit that was once plucked by Mundus. Virgil's demon side embraces power absolute, so he eats the fruit, but he's promptly defeated by Dante. V then merges with his demon side after a swift cane stab through Urizen's heart, and they reform to create Virgil, the Alpha and the Omega. After some facial reconstructive surgery to look less like a biological twin, Virgil tells his twin brother Dante that he should get stronger if he wishes to defeat him. It's here that Nero learns that Virgil is his father, so Uncle Dante feels like the kid shouldn't partake in any of this patricide. After shutting Nero down, Dante goes on to fight Virgil by himself. As a reminder, this is fully confirming the plot elements of Nero being Virgil's son, as many of the art books from DMC allude to this notion, especially in DMC4 SE when Virgil visited Fortuna. Upon leaving, he saw a hooded woman who gave him the business, and now we're here.
Well, well. That was a long time ago.
Your pussy makes me whistle.
Nero then finds a little motivation himself from Kyrie, hating himself in the process for not saving Kratos. I love this bit because it shows that those characters from DMC4 did have some impact on Nero. After pulling the great fuck you trigger, which was done leagues better than a worm coated in slime, and calling herself a succubus, spouting out insults back and forth to Mi amo el Dante, Nero then embraces his own form of devil trigger, which is a bit symbolic because that's exactly how the logo looks for Devil May Cry 5 with the neon devil wings. Nero finally intervenes to stop Dante and Virgil from landing a fatal blow on each other, claiming that no one will die in this newfound extended family. After Nero defeats Virgil, it appears that the rivalry just subsides, with both elder demon brothers going to stop the destruction that Urizen caused with the demon tree. As usual, this process of cutting the Qliphoth roots comes with a bit of a caveat. Virgil and Dante now have the possibility of never returning to the human world. But let's be honest, when has this really stopped these two before? A, we got more goddamn games to make. B, Virgil has a sword that could literally cut through dimensions, and C, Dante literally drove through a portal in DMC2 to get back to the human world that randomly showed up out of nowhere if you read Before the Nightmare. The game ends with Nero being a new protector of Earth as the two demon brothers quarrel underground for the sake of supremacy under a new friendly rivalry. Obviously, you didn't come to play DMC for the story. Let's be honest with ourselves, you came for the immaculate gameplay because that is the forefront of all these entries. If I'm being honest, I did feel like the story was a bit by the numbers for fan service, all leading up to the resurrection of Virgil, which is what most people wanted. I can understand that much, but all the emotional weight outside of Nero's journey feels a bit subpar. It even felt like the only way they could give Dante something to do is by shoehorning in something personal, and they added Virgil into the mix. V's arc is just the end justifying the means by bringing Virgil back to life, so outside of that, he's pointless. I really didn't like that most of the side characters, they felt a bit brushed to the side, you know? It felt like Lady and Trish weren't given much to do at all. Both of these women are just captured and they are treated like damsels in distress. Nothing about their desire to help Dante is ever brought up again, which means that their character arc really doesn't advance from a narrative perspective. I wanted to see what these girls would sacrifice if they put it all on the line for the main characters. Compare that to DMC3, where the relationship between Lady and her father Arkham got really heavy at the end once she made that hard call to finally put him down after seeing how corrupted he was and that there was no turning back. Lady's philosophy on Dante also changed from seeing him as a useless demon to sympathizing with his plight as he cried for his brother who was possibly gone for good. That great characterization that I felt in DMC3 was absent in DMC5. DMC5 could have used a lot more weight, a lot more emotional stakes, a lot more emotional value that was given to us in Devil May Cry 3 Dante's Awakening. It felt like DMC3 was a chess game where every pawn had a purpose in that story, as opposed to this one where the big payoff was spoiled to us anyway in the final trailer. In conclusion, you will freaking love the story payoff of DMC5 if you love Nero and Virgil as characters respectively. That much is a given. If not, then you might feel like there are some things lacking with some of the characters when they're not utilized to their fullest potential. It almost feels like that jump from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z. After a certain while, characterizations become useless if you don't have Saiyan blood. It's not all terrible at the end of the day because despite those setbacks, DMC5 assured that Virgil will be fully realized by the next time that we see him, so that much is definitely evident, and the characters, they still have these quirky quips that you would expect in a Devil May Cry title. They have oozing charisma. Everyone just oozes with this aura of quintessential badassery whenever you see them do insane feats on screen. This isn't reboot tier writing for sure. I just wanted a more impactful and great conflict resolution with this story experience. The graphics are nothing short of astonishing for all the accomplishments given in the RE engine. You've seen it in action with Resident Evil 2 Remake and you're seeing it in full swing with DMC5. It's a great foundation of photorealism. I absolutely love the graphics. It's a great centerpiece of consistent performance in this game that supplements every animation, enemy movement, particle effect that blasts on screen in its full entirety, etc. It's beautiful, dude. If I can give some nitpicks, I will say it's a few of the environments that feel like they look a little bit too dark, but I never really had an issue with performance or graphical bugs. This game runs better than a durable on steroids. In terms of replay value, you have 20 missions to go through with secrets to collect. A single play session will net you a good 10 hours, 15 hours on your first playthrough. Alongside these completionist runs, if you're looking to do more stuff like Dante Must Die, Son of Sparta, other difficulties. If you feel like getting every skill and achievement, that will probably eat up more of your time and add to your overall play value. But the higher difficulties, man, they will definitely test your patience. And there are these things called diverging paths in some of the chapters where you could play with all the different characters on the same stage or the same sort of story perspective, but they all go like separate ways and you get to see like differing areas because of it. It's not enough of that. And I feel like there's some stuff you could do with Bloody Palace. Hey, you want to fight through 100 floors of enemies and fight through this giant enemy gauntlet with the bosses spawning and all this stuff changing? You can do that. I would say the game does have a decent offering to keep you coming back for a bit if you like hack and slash titles, but Capcom really should have taken the incentive to iron out the replay value a little bit more. There are things like the crossover co-op, which was lifted from Resident Evil 6, that really isn't utilized that often in DMC5, which kind of sucks. Add in the fact that there's no invite system during these crossovers, alongside no Bloody Palace co-op. It's really just something that hurts the game more than helps it. They certainly could have embarked on this experimental phase with co-op, which surprises me when you notice they don't do that much with it to make it enthralling. It certainly seems like if Capcom really can't accomplish their goals, then the modding community certainly has it handled as far as PC goes. As for Virgil DLC, you already know my answer on that. If Insuno moved on to another project, I'm totally fine with this being a complete experience, despite the criticism to increase the lifespan with single player DLC. I want a sequel to fully iron out all the kinks on a much grander platform while not waiting 11 more years to get another entry. Also, please, give us Virgil in a full-fledged game, because I'm tired of repaying for the same special edition just to play as this guy. Why is he exclusive to special editions? Please let me play with Virgil at my own pace and not having to rebuy the same game just to play as him. Please. The only way I'm giving a special edition Virgil bundle with DLC a pass is if A, is dirt cheap, or B, it's a free update. It's the only way. It's the only possible way they will win me over. Otherwise, I will roast this game for eternity. If I give Street Fighter and MVC the same crap, then I have to give DMC the same crap. If I have to pay for a legacy game that's going to be equivalent to a retail release, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. Never. No. I want the DLC. Obviously, a lot of people misinterpret this. I do want the DLC if it happens, but if it doesn't happen, if they decide to move on, that's fine. If they decide to re-release it and make it super cheap, that's good. If they decide to make it free, oh, that's definitely great. But if they do anything else like overpricing that DLC, I'm going to be furious. Once again, to reiterate, Devil May Cry 5 is a fantastic return to form for the series, adding in some layers on top of deep gameplay, fixing most of the issues from DMC4 by tailoring levels around certain characters, and giving us some excellent performance. The gripes that are prevalent relates to the weaker characterization for the sake of a fan servicey conclusion, and some ideas not reaching their fullest potential in terms of co-op. As a complete package, I definitely say if you enjoy the series, or if you're looking to get into Devil May Cry, DMC5 is more bang for your buck. But be sure to play the older games first before you play this one. The HD collection is out there. DMC4 is dirt cheap. Play all the other games, then play 5, and then enjoy the experience. Devil May Cry 5 is the upper echelon of hack and slash titles, and I give DMC5 a 4.5 out of 5, as well as my highest recommendation for a purchase on a buy, wait, or sell system. Get it now. This is Renegade Operative signing off. Hopefully you guys really enjoyed this video. This is my full review of DMC5. It took me a while, but hey, I got it done. Hopefully you guys like it. And once again, slap that like button, share, do everything you need to do. Let me know in the comments how you felt about this review, any talking points you want to go on, etc. I'm always open for a discussion. And once again, you people out there have a fantastic night. Take care, and as always, be awesome. See you later.